Welcome everyone to the Mendocino Historical Review Board meeting. It's a special meeting time via Zoom and YouTube for the public. September 14th, 2020. We are starting this meeting at about 2:09. I'd like to call for a roll call from Julia.
Sure. So I'm excited that we get to call 4 names today. So we'll start off with Chair Lamb.
Here.
And Vice Chair Roth.
Present.
And Board Member Kapler.
Here.
And Board Member Saunders.
Here.
Excellent. So we have all 4 members present.
Has the legal notice been posted and determined?
Yes, proper notice has been established.
Okay, thank you. So for the there are no agenda items this month, which is unusual, but we decided on our prior meeting that we are going to go ahead and have the meeting anyway, because we did have some unfinished business to handle in the fact that we were behind on minutes and on reviewing minutes. So thank you, Julia Acker-Krog, for doing such a nice job putting together all the minutes. And I think that in the event that there are any changes to be made, that we'll go through and look at each item per item. So the first item is item 4A, which is the minutes from January 6, 2020. I'm wondering if anyone has any comments or changes to be made for that. Board member or Vice Chair Roth, do you have any changes to be made for those minutes?
These, no, it doesn't. My only comment is that it was strange going back in time.
Yeah, that's true.
Reliving a different world. I have no modifications.
Board member Kapler.
Yeah, actually, I do have some comments on this one. If we go to item 9A on this item, this deals with the bank's proposal to put in a new sidewalk. And here, I think it's indicated that the concrete finish will be either exposed aggregate or brush finished as determined by the review board. But then under review board action, it just says we approved the permit. But as I recall, we indicated a preference for exposed aggregate finish. And I think that needs to be indicated in the minutes.
Yes, staff could incorporate that into the review board action and just add at the end there that the permit request was approved, noting that the finish on the concrete shall be exposed aggregate.
Okay. And then in addition, under item 9B, to me, the way the review board action is indicated here, I didn't think this was very clear. This was a rather complicated case. If you remember, this was the issue of a number of signs that were to be added or changed or moved. And I think there were 10 items on the agenda for this item. And I thought it would be clearer here if we could indicate for each of the 10 items or issues what we decided, whether we denied it, approved it, or modified it somehow. So I would propose—
If I may, under review board action, I believe it's underlined denying the request and all the items. Oh, I see. Not all of the items are mentioned. Is that what you have an issue with?
Yeah, I have an issue. Yeah, I don't think all of the items are mentioned. And I'm not sure that, let's see, item 5 is, no, 5 isn't,
You know, what I could do is we could take a little bit of time and make sure we go through and provide more detail on the action that was taken on this. I agree it was a complicated one. And if you remember, it spanned over both the December hearing, which is the minutes that I was not able to get to, as well as the January hearing. So what might be in our best interest is to defer action on these minutes until you have the December ones to look at side by side with the January ones. And I could add more detail in here regarding the review board action for this item and the previous item. But I would be curious if you have any other comments that I should be focusing on and doing revisions.
That's a good suggestion.
In conjunction with that, if you look at it was continued in December, and if you look at the ones that aren't listed from the request goes 1 through 10, and I believe the ones that weren't listed on the action
Are
from
approved.
January were already approved.
That's what it says on the thing. The permit application was approved. So all the items except for items 1, 6, and 8.
Yeah, but the ones that aren't listed were approved in the December meeting.
Well, it somewhat. So we did have some items that were said not to be of issue to the review board, but no actual formal action was taken at that time. So we would be capturing the formal action in the January set of minutes. So I think I can make this clear between looking at the December minutes and the January minutes, and that way you guys can have both of those side by side at our next meeting to be able to take, a more comprehensive look at the project.
That sounds good.
Thank you. So let's move to
Just
continue the minutes for January 6, 2020
a
to
second.
the next meeting.
You're good.
Yeah.
I just had one editorial change.
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay. Under review board actions, we're talking about the signs for Baby Le Pen. And I noticed that it was misspelled.
It says Babe Le Pen.
Oh, yeah, babe.
3
Okay.
It's
times.
because I will tell you, Microsoft Word doesn't recognize Baby Le Pen as a word. That's my problem. Spell check.
Okay, that was it then.
Perfect. Well, so I can bring
Do we
those
need to
back.
call for a vote to move this to the next agenda, or can we just decide that?
We
It's an
could just,
action.
I was going to say we can do one motion at the very end of all the minutes unless you'd like to look at them individually, which I know was requested at previous meetings. So that's entirely up to you, or you can make one motion at the very end to continue these minutes and the other action on the other minutes.
So it's because we are going to move through on all of them in case there are comments on the other ones. So would Mr. Roth or would any of the board members like to make a motion to move to continue the minutes? Do I hear a motion?
Do you want to do that? Because you
Kapler,
have-
Mr. Roth, or Mr. Sanders? Well, Mr. Sanders wasn't here, so
Fine, yeah.
it would be.
Up to you guys.
I was going to suggest, Holm, do you want to make the motion because you had the changes? Can you
Right.
pick that up?
So I'll make a motion that we continue the question of the approval of the January 6th, 2020 minutes to the next session.
I'll second
Great.
that.
Thank you.
Call for vote.
All those in favor, if you could just say aye.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you. So those are moved to our October 5th agenda.
Okay, so the next minutes that we're going to be looking at are from February 3rd, 2020. Mr. Kapler, do you have any comments for the minutes for February 3rd, 2020?
Yeah, I have a comment on item 10A. And maybe this is tied up with the last item on our agenda today, which is that letter that we're supposed to be sending to the Board of Supervisors. I don't think we ever saw a final version of that letter. And the last paragraph of 10A says, motion was made by Board Member Roth to incorporate the changes regarding cleanup of the bullet points in the letter inclusion of a date and incorporation of the paragraph regarding expertise that was previously sent to the Board of Supervisors regarding membership.
That letter,
That or
I don't know if that was prior to your time, but Chair Dan Potash did a very nice letter, and we sent it to the Board of Supervisors. At the time, that was a prior supervisor than the one that we have now. We now have Ted Williams. And it went nowhere. We didn't even get an acknowledgement back from the Board of Supervisors that they received the letter. So I think because of that we were going to make another go of it. And Supervisor Ted Williams has been very active with the Historical Review Board and would like to be able to help us enlarge the membership parameters in order to try and get a full board. But I believe, if I may, that is already on the agenda as item 10 for this month. So can we discuss that later on?
Well, and if I may, I think the confusion is stemming from the action from the February 3rd minutes was not that was the final letter. That was just direction. I believe it was Board Member Roth that was preparing that letter at the time, and that was more direction for him on what the board's revisions were to it. But there has not been formal action taken yet on the final letter to the board, which is that item later on in the agenda under matters from board.
Discuss that later, home.
okay.
I have no comments.
Yeah, I don't have any comments either.
So I'll move approval of the minutes from February 3rd, 2020 as submitted.
And I'll second that.
Okay, excellent. We have a second by Kapler. So then just if all those in favor could say aye.
Aye.
And that was unanimous. Thank you very much. So we're on to our next set of minutes.
Okay, so item 4C, the minutes from the March 2nd, 2020 meeting.
No
I
comment.
did not have any comments.
I didn't have any comments.
So I'll move.
Board Member Roth, did you have any comments regarding these minutes?
No, none. As such, I would move approval of the action minutes of March 2nd, 2020 as submitted.
I'll second.
Excellent. Motion by Roth and second by Kapler. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. That motion carries unanimously. And moving right along to July.
Okay, so now we're going to, since we didn't have meetings for a couple of months during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are no minutes in between the March 2nd, 2020 and the July 20th meeting. So item 4D, that is reviewing the minutes from the most recent meeting that we've had, which is the July 20th, 2020.
Actually, didn't we have a meeting in August?
Oh,
But July comes before August.
true. Oh, that's true. We don't have the August minutes yet, right?
Those will come with, likely on your next agenda. We'll have those. It was just a little bit too tight a turnaround for us.
I see. Okay, so we'll be catching up to 1 month ago.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comments about this?
I have two.
Board Member Kapler.
Yeah, I had a comment on 10F. 10F says that upon motion by Board Member Kapler, seconded by Board Member Kapler. I don't think that happened. I'm not sure who made the motion or who seconded, but I didn't do it twice.
You are correct. You did not do it twice. I'm going to guess one of those is Board Member Roth is going to be my guess, and I will have to look back at my notes to confirm who is the correct motion maker and the correct second on that one. So I can flag that for correction and ensure that we put the right board member. So with that, your choice would be either to approve them as modified with the direction to staff on that one, or you could also continue if you wanted to see those changes in front of you.
I would suggest if no one has any other comments regarding these minutes that they are moved for the planning board to
I had
make
one,
the correction and then approve them without having to come back before us.
right, but I had one more change on 12C.
Okay.
I think the word approved is missing. Chief Planner Krogh stated that the Board of Supervisors, after hearing the appeal on July 14th, and then there's no word, I think the word approved needs to be there, the review board's action.
Actually, I would say affirmed, and that's what should have been in there is affirmed. So I've made that note to add that correction because the board upheld the review board's decision.
Right.
So Chair, I have a modification clarification.
Go ahead, Board Member Roth.
Yeah.
Or Vice Chair Roth.
On 10D, the review board discussion has it stating that I had recommended approve the permit for 10 years. And on the review board action, I see that the project was approved with modified language in condition 10 and addition of condition 11. But in reading these minutes, I don't know whether the 10 years was approved or not, and what the modified language in condition 10 was and what condition 11 is.
I'm trying to rack my brain. And you know what I would have to do is I'll have to look. And so what I would suggest then is that we would defer action on these minutes, and I can come back with that clarification in October, because I apologize, I don't have my notes in front of me from July to note that. I want to say that the 10 years was something that the review board approved, but I would have to look back.
I remember clearly because Vice Chair Roth was the one who brought that up. So I think you're right about that. Yeah, Ian. So
what condition 11 would be, I'm not sure. It'd just be nice to see.
Well, I do remember condition 11 was about compliance with the health officer's order in effect at the time. That was something that staff recommended adding I recommended adding that during the meeting. I do recall that. And condition 10, I assume that's going to be relating to the dates, but without the application in front of me, I don't want to misstate that.
Can I make a motion?
as I recall, what we did was decided that the dates could be open-ended due to the pandemic and circumstances as of now, that the circus could go on, but perhaps could be at Halloween. I believe they are planning a Halloween circus tent. They've already issued announcements that they're having a Halloween circus camp and perhaps Christmas or something if they want to do that. So I think that's where it needs to be clarified that there would be open-ended and that they would have a certain amount of days per year for the next 10 years. Does that sound right to you, Mr. Roth?
Yes, it does. And I would make this recommendation that we let staff go back and put in language for what the modified language is in condition 10, as we just discussed, which should be the floating dates, and the addition of and the 10 years and the health officer condition 11. If we can clarify that and find whoever was the first and second on 10F, I don't see why we need to see it again. I'd just like to see it corrected.
And staff, I can easily add in that language. And then if you'd like, I can just email the review board members the final copy, so you have it for your records too, so you know the final action.
I'm good with
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the July 2020 minutes with the staff updating items 10D and 10F.
And 12C.
And 12C, yeah.
And 12C.
Thank you. So that was a motion by Roth. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, I'll second it. Come on, I'm gonna do something here.
Oh. All right, we've got Saunders as a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. So with that, it looks like you have approved all minutes with the exception of the January 6th. And what I can do is with any of the items that we had clarifications on, I'll just send you guys the final copy so you have them for your files.
So has there been any correspondence about anything? I guess public expression.
Sorry. Before we move on, I just wanted to make a comment here. It's taken us 9 months to get some of these minutes, and it seems like an awfully long time. I would really like to urge the staff to get the minutes to us within 2 months at the latest. It becomes very hard to remember what happened even 2 months ago, but certainly 9 months ago. So I really urge the staff to make an effort to improve the speed with which the minutes are considered by the board.
Understood. And I think now we're at a point where we're nearly caught up. So I think it will be easier for staff to be able to comply with that. Just with the backlog we had before, it was difficult to get to them. And then also our memories had to be tested to be able to write them. So
Thank you.
yes.
Good comment. Okay, so obviously we don't have correspondence because there are no agenda items. So we will go for the report from the chair. The Mendocino Historical Review Board is pleased to announce that the Board of Supervisors has approved the installation of local resident Alan Saunders of Mendocino as a new member of the MHRB board. So welcome, Alan.
Thank you.
I'm going to give a little history that on Alan's background. Alan was born in England and emigrated to the United States in 1990. Up until 2015, he was an engineer and manager working on the development of computer hardware, initially for IBM based in the UK and later for Seagate Technology based in Minnesota. He and his wife have 5 children and 3 grandchildren between them, who are spread between San Diego, Minnesota, and Southern England. After traveling around, they decided to settle in Mendocino. They bought their home here in 2018 to get away from the Minnesota weather and be closer to the ocean and their favorite wineries. Alan volunteered for the MHRB so as to be more involved in the community and get to know the village and its residents better. His interests are gardening, cooking, and being in the great outdoors. So welcome, Alan Saunders.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you on board.
Thank you.
Okay, so has there been any public expression expressed for anything, Julia Acker-Krog?
We have no requests for telecomment on public expression, but we do have one request for telecomment when we do reach the matters from board discussion.
Quick question, if I could. And it's, does the public have the ability to watch this as in real time?
Yes, they do.
And is that posted somewhere?
Yes, it's on our YouTube channel, and I do just want to preface that by saying there is a slight lag time between the live Zoom meeting that we have here and the actual streaming that happens on YouTube, but it is a very minor lag, only by a couple seconds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For the consent calendar, is there anything on the consent calendar?
No items.
Thank you, staff. Are there any items for public hearing?
No items today.
Thank you, staff. Okay, matters from board. Item 10A, discussion and possible action, letter to the Board of Supervisors regarding membership requirements for the review board. So now we're back to this item that we started talking about during the minutes. Can we get an update on the letter, Vice Chair Roth, that you were in process of making?
So at one point, I think it was the last it could have been in February because Chair Potash was present. We presented a letter with a number of different items on it, which we had discussed in prior meetings. I was kind of hoping that it would be put in the staff as part of an attachment because we actually did have something in hand at one point. There were certain categories that were put in one is I took the original letter that was submitted to the board a couple years ago, and then we added a couple of different categories to be able to discuss as to whether we want it or not. There's negotiations, and we end up on agreeing on throwing out a couple things. And it's probably good to revisit that. And I don't know how best to, oh, there we go. Thank you.
You can see, I've got it up here with share screens. Can everyone see what I have on display here?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you, Julia.
Okay. So this was the letter. I'm going to just scroll down a little bit so that way you can see the portion that was really about the membership requirements. So there you go.
So there are a couple other pieces that we had that were in there that we had a split vote on and couldn't agree to. And with that being said, term limits and property owners, business owners were discarded, so they're not in there. And I'd kind of like to revisit that if we could.
I've already gotten comments from a couple of people that live in the public area regarding that. So I believe that we would have to put the letter on the agenda because there's been plenty of times when that's been on the discussion board since the MHRB has been formed, and for many reasons it's been declined. So I think that the public needs to have some kind of input on this to help everyone understand what the ramifications are to have a business owner who doesn't live in the historic district area or to be on the board.
And hasn't this been noticed?
This letter?
Yeah, it's as an item. It's on the agenda.
Oh, though.
I never got a copy of this letter in my packet.
No, so-
I did not.
Yeah, so if we haven't gotten a copy of this letter, it may be noticed, but we can't really talk about it because no one else has gotten a copy of this letter either.
Well, if we can't talk about it, then why is it on the agenda?
I don't know. Well, it should be on the agenda, but we should have gotten a copy of the letter.
So if I may, so you can certainly discuss this, and the letter itself does not require that it has to come before the review board in terms of a public hearing setting for the public to comment on it. This is really a piece of correspondence that you guys as the board are crafting to provide to the Board of Supervisors. So what's happened in the past is that there were notes provided by the review board members, and then whoever was the designated person from the review board would go back and prepare revisions to the letter. So I would think that what the board could do today would be to discuss any additional revisions you'd want to see to the membership requirements, and then perhaps Board Member Roth or Vice Chair Roth could prepare those revisions. And then we schedule it onto the October 5th agenda for review and final approval of the letter for your distribution to the Board of Supervisors.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Julia. I think the issue that Board Member Roth is bringing up is that we're at odds as to opinion as to if there should be merchant owners that do not live in the town to be able to be on the board. So I think that's the issue that we're having some challenges with. Is that correct to say? Board Member Roth.
Yeah, there was, with a different composition of the board, there was a disagreement about term limits and property owners, business owners. We have a different composition of the board. We never got the letter out. I think it's worth discussing again. And that, I mean, we can talk about those individually now. Going through the notes, I remember Chair Lamb was against or made a comment, what if the board consisted completely of business owners and who weren't local residents? And I think we could remedy that by saying no more than 2 seats could be by business owners, which is keep a majority of board members as residents. I mean, I know personally, I'm both a business owner and a resident, and my interest in this village as a business owner is equal to that as a resident, because I understand how the community needs to function, especially as an inn owner. When the when the inns are shuttered, the economy falters. It's a lose-lose. So
Well, I can see that, and I can see that you're a unique person, but say that someone from like a larger corporate would like to install one of their board members just because they would like to have a say on things. I don't want to mention any names, but there are some larger hotels, real estate offices that are owned by big parent groups from out of the area. And it starts to become a little challenging when you have that wide open field, because then they can challenge that they don't have to live here. They can live in New York. They can live in Italy.
what
You
interest,
know,
as a business owner, what would, if everyone comes to Mendocino because it's cute and it's the same place it's always been and it'll always be that way, and that's how business thrives, what good would a business owner have in wanting to put a 10-story steel building? I mean, that's
yeah.
but
Well, you're fairly new to the board, and I'll tell you this right now. I'm going on almost 6 years, and when I started being on this board, I really thought people would come to this town, and I'm a realtor, by the way. So I see this all the time. You think, oh, they're going to come to this town, they're going to think how cute, and they're going to, whatever plans they make, it's just going to fit in. And then you realize, oh, I see why there's a Mendocino Historical Review Board, because you cannot believe some of the things that some people want to do. It's unbelievable. And that's what the board is here for, is those speed bumps and stops for the things that are just not going to fit in. Not everyone is going to think that. If they were going to think that, we might have, purple and red houses like Victorians, like San Francisco. We might have, just you name it, on some of the projects that I've seen over the last 5.5 years. It's unbelievable. And so I've learned not to make any preconceived judgment that whoever comes here is going to realize that this is a really sweet historic town and that they don't want to do whatever it is. And I think even in your short duration of being on the board, board member Roth, that you've seen a couple of items that I think were not conducive to the historic town, and I feel good about the votes and the outcome of those items. But to have someone who doesn't live here, there's no guarantee of what they are going to want to do or decide to do.
So we do have there two, and I think this is a good discussion. There are 2 things that are sort of worth noting. We have design guidelines. And so if we want to make a decision that's against design guidelines, we're going to have a majority vote and have good reasoning why we don't follow those design guidelines. The other piece is, if we're talking about large corporate, whoever, they're going to have to make it to the town of Mendocino in person. When we go about those in-person meetings, they're going to have to be able to make it here to the meetings to be able to have a voice and a vote. So it can't be someone from New York. It can't be someone from Chicago or Los Angeles. Otherwise, they're going to be flying in for the day, which seems a little ridiculous. And plus, if we limit it,
We had a board member who lived in San Francisco most of the time, so he had a house here. But we've been down that road already.
If we limit it to no more than 2 business members, we have at least a pool of people we could bring in, and that would keep.
I'd like to hear from Ed O'Brien again, because I spoke with him about it, and he was one of the original members of MHRB. I'd like to hear his viewpoints. I'd like to hear the viewpoints of former chair Dan Potash. I know he has some viewpoints regarding this.
And if I may, on that point, actually, Chair Lamb, we do have the request for telecomment is from Dan Potash.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I'd like to hear from Dan Potash.
Okay, so let me go ahead and give Dan here the microphone. All right, Dan, can you hear us? There we go.
I can. Thank you. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
I'll be brief because I need to get going too. I'm not sure where the board's at, but I'm getting the idea that the idea of a non-resident merchant owner is still on the table. And I would just discourage the board from recommending to the Board of Supervisors to expand its membership eligibility to non-resident business owners. This is an idea that's been floated many times over the last decades and was rejected over and over again for the same reason then as it should be rejected now, which is the simple truth of the matter is, notwithstanding board member Roth's sentiments, business owners rightly have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the interests of many different parties other than the historic preservation of the town. Those interests may include everyone from employees of theirs to business partners to investors, so on and so forth. And while the board should always look out and seek out those interests and take them very, very seriously, that's much different than having them being final decision makers regarding historic preservation when their financial interests justifiably lie elsewhere. If the board is prepared to expand the eligibility to non-residents, then I would think that someone who actually has an academic or professional background in historic preservation would be a better fit for MHRB than someone whose primary interest is the local business environment, which again is important. It's critically important, but it's called Mendocino Historical Review Board for a reason. So that's my 2 cents, if it's worth even that. Thank you.
I appreciate your opinion.
Can I make a comment? I thought that actually that we had taken a position on this back in February, and that gets me back to the minutes we have for the February meeting. And I thought basically that the letter was complete in terms of substance, and it was supposed to be corrected for a few problems, and then it was going to go to the board for final approval. But I think in terms of substance, I thought that the letter we have in front of us is what we agreed to at that time. And now I think we're talking about opening the question up again. If we're going to open up the whole question again, then I think it ought to come back to the board at its next meeting. And there ought to be some text that we should look at in terms of what Ian wants to insert here. And I do think that the community should have a chance to express its views on this. I don't think it's just the board.
Thank you. I agree. So either we are going to approve the letter as it is, because I agree with Mr. Kapler that this is the letter that we decided. And so Vice Chair Roth, for you to be bringing that item up again, just because it's on the agenda item, we thought we'd already gone over this, and we thought the letter that we have before us is it. Now it seems like you want to revisit that item, in which case then it has to be agendized again, and the public needs to have some comment on this.
And that's what I'd like to do. And in light of Member Saunders' newest position here, this is not the board that discussed it prior. This is a different board.
Yeah.
So I think it would be, if Member Saunders is going to sign his name to it, I think he should have time to weigh in as well, as with the public. That's what I would like to see.
I would need to read it and absorb it a little bit. And obviously I'm extremely new, both to the area and the issue. So I don't think I want to comment right now, but I take your point. I would like to understand that. I mean, the first question that comes to my mind based on the discussion we just had was that you said maybe we do 2 business owners. And so then I would ask you, as both a business owner and a resident, which one are you? Because then you know,
Good
you
comment.
could end up with 5 business owners that way.
Good comment, Alan.
So I don't know. I'd have to absorb it, I think, and look at it.
I think
So
Mr. Roth, I think you might be outnumbered on this one, but we'll see.
I'm not going either way at the moment. I just would like
Yeah.
to have to think.
And if I am, that's fine. That's why we have this process. It's called democracy and debate and discussion.
No, I'm good with that.
So my suggestion would be that this item, what I would ask is if I believe Vice Chair Roth is still the designated review board member preparing this letter. So I think Vice Chair Roth, I need a revised copy of the letter that incorporates the changes from the February 3rd meeting, which was just a cleanup of some of the bullet points on the letter, the inclusion of the date, and incorporation of a paragraph regarding expertise that had been previously sent to the board. And then with that revised letter, I can send that out with the October 5th agenda. And that way that can be available on the website for the public to look at, as well as for all the review board members to review and comment on. And I would just ask that you get me that letter no later than by the end of next week. Ideally earlier than that would be great. So I could have it at least on the Thursday, but so I'm looking at the calendar here. That would be about September 24th.
Yes. Could you send me the letter that you had on your desktop?
Yes, absolutely. I will after the meeting.
Thank you.
I have a procedural question because I haven't had my Brown Act training. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chair, Board Member Sanders.
Am I allowed to discuss that with Board Member Roth one-on-one before we get to the meeting or not?
Yes, you are. So the rules with Brown Act, you just can't have 3 of you on a call, and you can't tell anybody else what you've talked about with Mr. Roth.
Okay, that's fine, as long as I understand.
That's the rule.
Okay,
Perhaps you two have that conversation. Okay, so
I just clear up, are we going to have a text from Ian also of the paragraph that he wants to incorporate? Or will that be a separate submission from Board Member Roth?
I would recommend that I'll put in that paragraph, and then if we decide to strike it, then we strike it and get it out. And it's a little more different virtually, but I guess it could be prepared by.
I think it should come before the meeting. If you're going to put your paragraph in about adding merchants, then it should come. Put your paragraph in. It'll be published and noticed to the public, and then you can bring it back, and then we can all vote on it. And it might take another month or so if a motion is made to strike that from the letter.
If it would be helpful, I can share screen again during the next meeting and make edits to the letter as we're going through the meeting, if that would be helpful.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
And then if we all have agreement on it, then all we need to do is figure out how to sign it and get it off, as opposed to bring it back to another meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a couple of items that I would like to, as matters from the board, put on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
If I may. I'd like to, we've over the past couple of years, we have discussed the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, for rehabilitating historic buildings. This is the catalog, and I'd like to get everyone this catalog. And the item that I feel is so important for us to have further guidelines are, in specific, is the solar. And there's a large section in here that gives the guidelines of how solar panels should be treated when rehabilitating a historic building, or as we are a federal historic town, as far as the town. So like to see if we can, I know that there is a link that's available online. And so if people don't mind reading it online, they can, but otherwise perhaps we can get some of the books to people. I can see if I can work on that. And put that on the agenda for discussion. Does there anyone have any issues with that? Okay,
Okay.
great. So can we do that then, Julia Acker-Krog?
Yes, and what I was actually going to say is a previous review board actually reviewed those Secretary of Interior standards, and I believe actually took an action recommending that they wanted to adopt them into the code, but it never moved any further than that discussion. So
I was at that meeting and that is what
Yes.
happened. So, but since we have a whole new board, I think that we do have to agendize it for this current board to look at those guidelines again. And I believe that they're going to agree that adopting them at this point is a good idea. I hope we'll see. And so since all the board members except for myself are different, that we need to agendize it again, and they need to look at those standards, because we have the board has made the initial vote and it was unanimous to adopt the federal guidelines a couple of years ago, I want to say. And then somehow, Julia Acker-Krog, what does it take to finalize adopting those, should the board decide that they want to move forward with this?
it will likely take a planning commission action, then a board of supervisors action, followed by coastal commission certification is what I anticipate for it.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
At least if we get it started now, our grandchildren can finish it.
There you go. No, I do think, I think I'll confirm that with county council as well. I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could just stop at the board of supervisors level, but I'm unsure. I would think that you need to adopt it into the local coastal program in the review board chapter. So I would think coastal commission certification would be required. So.
Thank you. It's important. Okay, and then I have one last matter from the board. It was my understanding that, and we don't handle fees, but there was a discussion that the Board of Supervisors voted to reduce the fees for signs. And I recently had a business merchant approach me and say they contacted planning about putting a sign on her new business, and was told a certain fee of, I believe, $650, and I believe it's gone down to $195. I thought that should be front page news on the Beacon, but somehow I don't know that planning has gotten the memo about that. So, and I didn't see anything in our minutes about that. So maybe you could comment on that, staff.
Sure. So, the fee was adopted. I'm assuming that it just might have been that this person spoke with a staff member who may not be aware of the revised fee, although I did send out an email blast to all staff letting them know that there was that reduced fee. And then the only other factor is it does take us a little bit of time to program the new fees into our permit tracking software. So if a planner were to run an estimate, they may have come up with the wrong number. I will make sure that we follow up on that. I do want to be clear for this. The sign fee is approving for a single sign or a sign copy change at a business. It would not apply to, for example, the permit that we heard in December and January that had multiple signs on one location.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
Okay, so does anyone else have any matters from the board? Board Member Roth?
No?
Board Member Kapler? Board Member Sanders?
Nope.
Okay, so then we will go ahead and move on to matters from staff. Julia Acker-Krog, do you have any items that you would like to present?
I have no items. I do just want to note that you will still have, so in October, we will hear the December 2019 minutes that are outstanding, as well as the revised January minutes, and then August as well. And then at that point, we'll be caught up on minutes, and I will try to get September done as well, so that way we can be truly all the way caught up to the current meeting. So we've got only about 4 outstanding at this point, which is much better than the 8 that we were at before and the 12 we were at before that. So we're getting there.
And they'll come electronically as well as hard copy?
Yes, I can email those as well in advance. Yeah.
I may be out of town, so.
Okay.
And actually, I do have one matter, very small. Can I ask staff to prepare a contact point for each of the members? Because I know that
absolutely
talk to me, it's just cell phone and email.
Absolutely. I'm looking over and it looks like, yeah, we might already have one prepared. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that we send these out to everybody so you have everyone's contact information.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for attending the Mendocino Historical Review Board Zoom meeting. And I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Right. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.